Thank you, everybody. Hope you can hear me. And I get dry mouth, so I'm going to go a lot, and I'm sorry about that. I got some water, it didn't help. First of all, I want to thank the Pastel Society for having me. For Nicholas, for all his technical ability and assistance here, we're really fortunate to have him. And for Marilyn, for her wonderful editing and her work, graphic design for our newsletter that keeps all of us up to date on everything. So I'm going to do it a little bit different than all the past people. Letty had said to me she wanted me to do a presentation and a demonstration. And normally somebody does one or the other. And she goes, well, you do art residencies, you teach, you do your pastels. She said, how can you work it all together? And I painted on dresses as well. I had an art show last year. So I thought I'd give a short, this should be like a 10-minute presentation on the slides. And then I'm going to show you lately, well, I've been working intermittently doing pastels on wood. And those are samples that I've executed down there. There's only one that is done on paper. So this is going to be about unlimited boundaries, how to develop one's creativity. And I like things open, so if anybody has a question, just pipe up. You don't even have to raise your hand, because I think I might not see you, so just scream. So, as artists, visuals, one picture they say is worth 1,000 words. We can state visually something that people can go on and on and on, like politics, sexual harassment, anything. We could do it in one picture. And this is a talent we all have. It gives us a varied perspective on our social events, politics, individual rights, and emotions. I kind of tap more into emotions. I want to touch people with my art. I'm not a very political artist, and I know there's a place in the world for that, but I'm not one. If you are, the world needs it, and I hope you state your opinion. And an image can also depict a memory, a personal emotion, or what we don't like to hear, can match your couch. So that also comes into the game of being an artist and creating art. So I started with sketching and drawing, which is essential, and so many people don't realize this when they're working with pastels, because we have so many colors at our fingertips. We aren't mixing and blending. You can blend and mix with pastels, but with all the colors, why should we? We just have to go buy it first. So I was fortunate. I did this past January class at New Mexico Art League on sketchbook. And I'm so busy I don't keep a sketchbook. I hate to say that. I do little notes. I walk a lot and I scribble in a notebook while I'm walking. I write words. I used to be an editorial artist, and I'd come up with concepts with only words first before I would draw actually an image, because those words I would want to encapsulate into the image. So when you sketch, today it's just so wonderful. Sketchbooks aren't just graphite. They do abstract, they have gouache, they have, in my class, I used organic dyes. We did drawing with tea and coffee, which is typical, and beet juice. And I kept a sketchbook the whole time my class did, and I was doing everybody had to do like 4 pages. And so I was working at night, and I was too lazy to get up and make a cup of tea to use. So I went in the refrigerator and I got teriyaki sauce and soy sauce, which looked great, However, my sketchbook smells like a Chinese takeout. And so I've got a scratch and sniff going on here, but that's fine. So when you sketch, even if you sit and doodle, it's going to refine your drawing ability. It also increases your speed of execution. I saw more that I was drawing that my pastels became accelerated in accomplishing them and finishing them. Some of my paintings would take 3 weeks, and now I can do it in like 1 to 2. And it also develops your mark-making skills. A lot of us forget and get into this blending mode with pastels, and you can invoke so much emotion and movement with a stroke than you can just a blended patch of color. So when I was sketching also, I experimented with different mediums. This sketch was at Elena Gallegos. This was done with pencil and gouache, which I'm on black substrate. So I encourage people to try black as well as white in their sketchbook. And so you get to also experiment with other color palettes. I've noticed through the years that a lot of my art is blue. It was pointed out to me in a Scottsdale gallery that all my paintings had a blue tone to them. Because I like blue, it's soothing to me. And there was a gentleman there, and he did red sunsets, and his sunsets were flying out. And the director even showed me, she would put on a show by Dave's paintings. She would say, "Watch this," and she turned the dimmer switch down, and it looked like the sunset was glowing. And I said, "I gotta get on to red." It's like blue, it's just like your place, So every once in a while, throw in a curve, try a different color palette, try monotones, vary your substrates, try black. So this is what I'm talking about, ways to experiment. Use different kinds of paper. I typically use Le Carte pastel, Sennelier. And I've been doing pastels since about 1990. And I love what we can do, how many layers it holds, and the archival aspect of it. But then in turn, I'll try Pastel Premier, I will try Richardson, I try Spectrum, and see the capabilities, what they each do, and I try different colors. And that's how also I got onto wood, different types of wood. I wanted to see what you can do with that. Change your palette. Maybe you want to restrict it and just use extreme complementary colors. If you're in a blue zone, add a bunch of bright orange. Just punch it up rather than your subtle peaches and pinks, and people go to sleep when they look at it. And which is fine if they hang it in the bedroom, Also, alter your visual angle. Look up, look down. Don't just look straight across. We all tend to just have these blinders on and just keep going. It's like, look down once in a while. Look at the intensity of the shadows. Shadows are fascinating. For a while, that's what I painted mostly, because it would actually peak from very, very dark black navy into pale purple. There's intensity and tonal value in a shadow. So then I decided, this was about 2 years ago, I did dresses. I was awarded a show a year ago, April, at Harwood Art Center. I also had a pop-up show in a Palm Springs gallery after a residency on this, and where I was making my dresses. And I had hit 70, and somebody said to me, "Why don't you slow down?" And I didn't laugh about that. I got really mad. And it was like 69. I was going strong, and you said I was doing fine, and I'm 70. Now you're saying, take a back seat. And I didn't like that. You know, it's a common thing for us to age, but why should you quantify who you are by your number? So I also did wall arts. These are tondos. They're circular. They were mixed media, handprints, as well as acrylic paints and pencils, colored pencils. And the dresses, each dress I made myself, and each one was significant of a different biological process, like puberty, osteoporosis, mortality. And so each one had been hand printed. There's with toner prints. I hand printed it, I embellished it, I stained it. The puberty dress in the front with the heart, the white one, I stained the hem with strawberries. And all the veins running through was sisal that I found in the desert. It was buried and it was red. And I thought, this is perfect. It'll work for the dress. So I hand sewn every one of those on.
Do you make the dress before you put the design on?
Yes. In each dress, I took in consideration what I was trying to portray. They were either made from vintage patterns or commercial patterns that I would alter. And then I would sew them and hand print them. There's one on dementia. I had 8. And one thing I liked about it relates to pastel is think about texture. Think about something being tactile. What we're trying to do as artists is make a 2-dimensional scene into a 3-dimensional. We want people to touch this with their eyes. If it's a memory, we want to be able to touch it and feel like, yeah, I was there. You know, I remember that. And especially since we have iPhones or Samsungs, we don't have photo albums anymore. So it's like, in your archives, how are you going to find that memory when you got 10,000 images? You know? So, and concepts. A lot of people just go out and paint landscapes, and they don't think about the concept. You know, should there be a concept, or should it be a painting you're just trying to convey that it's a pleasant scene? I want to remember it because my life is hectic. There's no right or wrong, but I just wanted to push past and see what else I can develop. So and this is another image of the dresses. The one in the front is mortality, and it's prints of cemetery scenes and stones, and there's ravens flying and clouds, and it's hand painted with acrylic washes. It has a white train on the back that just is in chiffon and it floats. So, and on the wall, I had given out surveys between California, Arizona, here in Ohio, to women between 13 and 85. And it was 4 questions. It was on aging. Like, when did you started to feel old? Was it physical or mental? You know, the kind of conception. It was amazing, and the more I read, here I thought I was first going to gear it on women over 60 because I had hit 70, and I thought I'd keep it in that spectrum. I read with the United Health Organization that age bracket that's more weighed out about aging are teens. Teens and 20-year-olds. That they're more upset about getting old and dying than people in their 70s and 80s. And that just kind of blew me away. So I didn't finish, sorry. I started talking about the dresses being tactile. So using your stroking and texture, you can convey a lot with texture on your pastels. And then back to the survey, I put on the wall 3 anonymous excerpts from 3 different age ranges to the 4 questions. And I'm hoping to keep this exhibit ongoing and finding another home for it, and to increase the dresses. So the art residencies, I've done, the first one was at the Petrified National Forest, and I loved it. At 5 o'clock, they closed the gates to visitors, and me and one other artist could go anywhere in the 29 miles of the Petrified Forest. And we were in historical old adobes. And I would go out in plein air during the day, and then I would come home, would come to the adobe and finish. I would take photos and keep working on it. So I always would go to a different location. I also found out that sun is not your friend. And I had Le Carte Sonale mounted on, actually it was on a drawing board, wooden drawing board, and the paper worked on me from the heat. And then I went on the Blue Mesa Trail, and I thought, okay, I'll keep it going well. And they had like a asphalt walkway around the Blue Mesa. So I had a little tripod seat, and I put it down. I had that feather light, and I'm drawing and concentrating. And I get up, and the heat, my seat had gone into the asphalt. There were 3 holes in the asphalt. And I'm like trying to kick it, which didn't work. And I thought I'd better get out quick before the rangers see me. So anyway, that was the first one. And I've been to a dairy farm in 29 Palms 3 times. And I was at Mission Street Arts in Jemez last year. I did that one to finish my dresses. I started the dresses in 29 Palms, and it was 5 acres, a dairy farm, and I painted and drew in the cow's barn. It's all cement with troughs in it. So that's the scene of it. And then I went just this last March and finished up the paintings for open space and did sketching around there. What I say, it gives you time to create mistakes. You have crunch lines, deadlines, and you've got to do 10 paintings. And all of a sudden they aren't turning out. It's like, what can I do? And so when you have a lot of time, 2 weeks some of these residencies are, you can go there. And most of them don't have TVs in it. And their Wi-Fi is sketchy. And you're away. I mean, I was there 2.5 weeks last time. I would paint, start 8:30, 9 in the morning, take a break at noon, keep working till 6, go back, eat dinner, and then keep painting until 9 at night. And it was so refreshing. I didn't have a TV going or husband asking what's for dinner, and the people of the residency, at least at 29 Palms, she and her husband are artists as well. And they're very prolific in Palm Springs and LA and San Diego. So they would take me once in a while to art openings, and I got to see what was going on in that sector of the United States. So because of them, I got a 3-day show with my dresses at Palm Springs in a gallery. And I thought this was a brilliant concept, but maybe people aren't going to get this. Maybe I should drop this idea. But they were so favorable. And I had people, actually fiber artists, say it's about time we see something in this medium. So it gave me confidence. You get influenced by your environment. Jemez is much higher than here, but the desert is so arid. And the wildlife there is so much different. It can influence your art. You usually have to give a public engagement, 1 or 2. And this helps you to articulate and voice what you're trying to achieve. Because as artists, we're visual. We don't talk that much. In fact, a lot of us go to our own art openings and we don't want to talk. We get to that point. And so you have to, in a public engagement, discuss what you're trying to do. And it also gives clarity in your mind, what exactly do you want to relay? In most places, you have to leave a piece of your art. So here you're enriching that side of the nation with your art, and people start learning your name. So that's an aspect. So, yes.
I have a question. So the dresses, and then you have the tondos on the wall. What imagery was on the tondos? Did it relate to the dresses?
The tondos were prejudice. They were prejudice afflicted with age. Like in the surveys, I got blown away. Almost every woman over 60 said, I feel invisible. Nobody sees me when I'm standing there. Nobody listens to me when I talk. So one of the tondos, I thought, wow, I can't just make up a face, because with my luck, I always hear, hey, you look like, from the Midwest, we got that kind of face. So I did a self-portrait, and it was partly a little bit hand printed, and it was, all the tondos are wood. And then it's acrylic paint, and I had a veil over my face and in clouds behind me. And then the wall that you saw, a sliver of it, it was like 16 tondos. There were like 4 in the center, and then 12 going around smaller. And that was the depth of loneliness. And it was amazing. A lot of people have a misconception because we're in our 60s, 70s, or 80s. We're lonely and we're sad. And it's like a lot of us aren't. If you have the financial means, you can travel. And you don't have kids hanging on your skirts, and you aren't worrying about lunches and school money and what you have to do at work. Unless you're like me and working all the time. And so, some people were so pleased that they were this age. So they were landscapes of some scenes that are dark and moody, and some close-in scenes of sunset coming down, or some that was kind of a bright landscape. So there's different depths of loneliness. There was also one, I'm trying to think the name, beauty. It was about talking about the beauty industry and how they've warped females, especially the young, of this vanity. So I did Venus de Milo with flowers all around her. And then you see a needle, she was getting Botox on her hip. So it was very serious looking, even though it sounds funny. You had to really kind of look twice to see the needles, And, but it was that, so that's where I kind of went with that. So soft pastels, this is one of my pieces. And I'm sorry I didn't get up and say, I'm happy to say me and
Marilyn Whiteman.
Yes. We're invitational artists at Weems Art Gallery for July, and we had an opening last night. And this is a piece that's in there, soft pastel. And originally I had done it for the open space. And but you notice this was hard, but it was really fun. There's so many strokes and lines on it. And it was called, it's called Lost Footing. And the show had been originally on Pathways as a metaphor for life's journeys. And so this is a person who's lost their path in their life. And they're just all this wild bush around them and trees. And so I wanted you to feel like it was harmless, but it's like you've lost your way. So that I really worked a lot with mark making, which is something I didn't use a lot, say in the 90s. I didn't blend. I've never blended. And I feel there's a natural blend. So soft pastels, one thing I like to do is increase my mark making skills. And from doing the pencil work for sketchbooks, that has really helped me to realize the depths of the strokes you can get and relay different things. You also use your dots and scumbling. Okay. Also embrace texture. I didn't bring this today. This is a portrait I actually started at the art studio in Maryland's place. And it's on wood, like the larger piece down there is on wood. And you get a lot of texture. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Think about once in a while to give yourself variety. Try untypical substrates. Go to squares, go to circles instead of the traditional. Use wood panels, vellum, copper, artist canvas panels. I was 14 years in a Pasadena, California gallery, and there was another pastelist, and he painted pastels on copper sheets. And he, I'm sad to say, wouldn't divulge to me, because I was like, do you have to prep it? You know, it's like, and it was like he wanted to garner that corner of the pastels. So there's some people like that. You can ask me anything, I'll tell you anything, but there are some that won't. Okay. Also vary from going to small to large. This, of course, is a small one, like 5 inches. It's not the same image, but it's one. I like to change and do small periodically because it forces you to make every stroke count. When you go large, you could be expansive. You could do so much more. And so the other one is a painting that went up to New York for an exhibit, and that is about an 18 by 18 painting. And so you also see the texture is so much different too. There's more smoothness, and I was working for a motion of a storm with the large one. With the small one, I wanted movement, let you feel the clouds in this small substrate. So soft pastels, think about color, think about shapes. I do like teaching a lot because a lot of times I teach at Oasis and I teach at the Art League, and I'm going to start teaching teens at Harwood Art Center. That just because I don't do abstract doesn't mean it's relevant. You know, it's not relevant. Abstract on the West Coast is huge. Palm Springs, LA, 29 Palms, it's all very contemporary. And people of all ages, it's not just the young people. And so I get to choose, and at the Art League I change usually my classes almost every time, trying to do different things, like working with extreme complementary colors, or one time abstract, how to do abstraction. And I have gotten to embrace abstraction and appreciate what it can teach me. Without actual imagery, it's just color pattern and lines and dots. You can evoke movement with it, and also emotion. So one of the classes I gave, I suggested experimenting with genres. We did a scene that was in, realistic, traditional. The middle one is more stylized, taking the same scene. And the last one, the very far right, is an abstraction of that scene. And I tried to invoke also some of the original colors into it and get the essence of what I was trying to do. And that's it. And now we'll go to the wood. Piece of wood. Usually it's like birch. You can get wood from wood companies. You can go to Hobby Lobby. You notice on the back, I have an X. Even if you do, and which I did on here, I gesseled it, it will warp any wood. The smaller paintings that I have down there on wood, I did not gesso. Okay, I have to do a trial. Let's see. Sorry, I went a bit.
What was your point about the X on the back?
It stops and counteracts it from warping when you
put
draw on the front.
What do you put up?
So I used acrylic, and you do an X. No matter if it's square or circle, it counteracts against warping on the front. Yeah. And I like taking wood sometimes. It's easier transport, put in your lap if you're doing plein air. It's a little bit, it's not as fragile as some of the pastel papers. So I did gesso. The larger pieces I gesso, sand them down. I do it at least 2 times. Are we okay, Nicholas?
You're okay.
Okay. I sand it down 2 times, and then I use golden pastel primer on it. Okay? Some of the smaller ones there's no pastel primer, but I'm not putting 30 layers on it, where you see the large one there has been primed. There's more texture with when you prime it and you have pastel primer on it and gesso. And amazingly, the wood shows through, even with the primer. And so, Stan, you will like, I have red. So I then I'm going to tape this onto my board. I just have a foam board. I'm going to tape it onto the board. And of course, your pastel's not going to be on it. So when you get ready and you feel you're done, then you take it and I probably should have taped it before I primed it with the red. So I put red pastel on it. That I blend. I go and, I don't know if this is going to work. I have a hard time talking and doing. So I'll try to get this together. Okay. Usually I just have it on the gesso and then tape it, but I wanted you to see the back of it. So I put red pastel, and then I took a paper towel and I went and that's not going to stick there. Okay. Let's hope this works. I may have to go back and reinforce. It sticks to the gesso really well. Okay, if you're working from a photo and you're working in a round square, a round format, I just want to see if you had fallen asleep yet. And a lot of times, I'm really sorry, a lot of times I can't do 2 things. I'll start talking and I'll be drawing and I'll concentrate and I won't talk. So if I stop mid-sentence, say, what did you say? And I'll go from there. So if you're in your studio, you may want to clip the corners because those, so it looks more round format, just so it kind of helps your mind more. I kept it square. I did red because this is a landscape, a scene with dark greens in it, and I want the complementary color underneath. And then I'm going to look. I use all pastels. I usually start with new pastels, the hard soft pastels, to sketch it in. And people who take my class, I'm kind of, the only thing I'm really saying I want them to do is draw freehand. I don't want grids. I don't want anybody to use a grid in my class because then it looks like a bad photograph reproduction. And you're more concentrating trying to get in every inch, And where even if you work with a photograph, I want it to feel fluid. And a lot of times, if I'm working in the studio, and I do work in the studio a lot, after I get like 2/3 done, I throw the photo away, and then I keep adding more colors. And that I keep focusing on complementary colors. So I don't do a hard line first. I just do like thick lines. I get approximately squinting where the ground is, where the objects and the elements are. This is about halfway. and I just do lines to kind of get the placement. This mountain back here. So I do it this loose for the fact that the reason being, this is a little bit higher than halfway. The reason being, if I do a hard line and my lines are off, I've already forced myself into a bad drawing. If I just do a few lines up around, it gives me a basis, and then I start building in layers. And everything's very soft, so I can move my boundaries in and out to correct my drawing. So I always work a lot on the broad side, and what I'm going to do is first put in, and you see there's quite a bit of texture on here. I'm going to place in the darkest area first. This goes about halfway. And then I'm going to press not as hard, and I'm going to be putting in the midtones. Then I'll put in a little bit. It is. And there's actually midtones for in the sky. It's going to let's see. Some here. Okay. So it's still very loose, but at least I get about the placement where everything is. So now I'm going to go back and press harder where the darkest darks are. And I still can move my boundaries, my lines. Go like this. And I like to start usually, and it's getting harder to find it. This is Blue Spruce by New Pastel. And since we can't buy sticks individually anymore, it's getting harder and harder. So I've also bought Rembrandt. You could get a box of 5 half sticks of blue tones, and then there'll be one almost like Blue Spruce in it, and get it on sale. So it'd be like maybe $6. So I'm going to do an alcohol wash now.
Sue, did you treat the red pastel in any way with fixative?
No, I just,
Or-
thank you for asking, Valerie. I just took a paper towel and I just rubbed it. That's the only blending I do. I just rub it. And not real hard, just to put a tint. Sometimes I leave some of the background of white showing. And I know you can, golden pastel ground, you can add acrylic to it and tint it. And then you don't have, you can forego that step, you know. But sometimes it's like, maybe I'm going to go at sunset and I want more of a gold, and because there'll be so many lavenders on the sunset. So I wouldn't want red as my background. Because even though it's going to be covered, it gives a reflective quality. So I've got alcohol. I'm going to go and I'm brushing it. It's okay if it kind of goes down. I'm going to the darkest area first. I'm going my brush every which way. Okay, now there's residue on my brush. Oh, that's too dark. I'm actually going to go down here and give more of a mid-tone. That's okay. I can, everything, people don't realize that pastels are really forgiving in the beginning. I mean, I have done commissioned portraits, and I usually do a full-size sketch with color on it, spot color. And I'll say, if you want changes, tell me now. And then I change it and then I could continue. And in my contract, I say after that initial meeting and the changes are done to your satisfaction, then that's it. You can't give it to them and say, oh, I want you to put a hat on them, you know, or something like that. So I'm going to go, and I'm wetting and bringing down. I'm using rubbing alcohol. You can use any kind, just get at least 70%. If you get 30, it's going to be too diluted. Okay, so I'm going to try to get the cloud. And so I've got a little bit of a mid-tone going on here. I have the darker area, and then on the brush I'm using both the flat and the side. Okay, and you'll notice then that your darkest darks is going to be that from the alcohol. You can have some of that showing. Okay, so now I'm going to go, I'm putting it away so I don't knock it accidentally, which sometimes I do. I'm going to let it dry a minute. And so on this, what I'll do now is I would take like an ivory new pastel, let it dry just a minute more, and I'm going to now put in the lightest lights, but I'm not going to use white, because once you put white down and you keep adding colors, dust residue will go on top of it and it'll become dirty, and you never bring it back to the brilliant white. So I use the bright white at the very end, or almost the end. Okay, so I'm using broadside. I use that a lot, and which I'm hoping all the pastelists in here use all sides of the pastel. That I see a lot that all they do, they use it like drawing with a pencil, and that restricts your movement. If you have it on the side, you get grander sweeps, you know, you could get larger strokes. So I'm just going to put on here now. And when I'm adding my white, well, the ivory, I'm going in every which direction. And I'm not getting into this exact movement of it, you know, the shape of it, because I'm going to reinforce it in a little bit. Okay. And also I have a trap here, which is paper to help collect the dust. Okay. And then to get us going, what I'm going to do then is put some turquoise new pastel in the sky. And I always, if I put it in one spot, I'll always, like if I squint, I see a little bit down here, I put it in another location. Because if you just have it in one spot, then it's like a deer in headlights. If I just put one white dot there, and then I say I'm done, when people come up, that's what they'll look at. You know, and then they walk away. You want to have harmony throughout your whole painting. So I'm going to add a little bit also in for my frontal plane, and add just a little bit, and I'm not pressing hard. This is one thing too of learning how to change your pressure on your pastel. In the beginning, I don't press real hard, and this way it enables me to keep building up more and more layers. I would probably do, let's see. So this is, like I said, a mixture. It's actually Rembrandt, Holbeins, New Pastel, Sennelier, Jack Richardson, because I went to IX. I bought some too, but you know, thank God that was, I'm so happy he still does that. That's a wonderful thing for pastelists. And if people don't know what I'm referring to is, if you go to Jack Richardson in the trade show, you usually, I think it was 10 free pastels, handmade soft pastels. And then the rest were at a reduced rate. Okay, so I'm using like now a green. This is more like a khaki green. I'm starting to fill it in a little bit. If I'm doing this one, I selected this picture, and it's at Elena Gallegos. I selected it because of all the brush in the front, so I could turn around and use a lot of strokes. And then I would probably go to like a pink. Well, not a pink because I got so much pink. I'd go to a lavender. And when you tape your subject on, if you're taping it, always use the white natural masking tape. If you use blue, it throws off your colors. Or somebody had orange to go, it was on sale. And it really throws you off. So I've got like a lavender, and sometimes on the masking tape I'll put it, do a mark, see how it looks. Is that what I want to do? So I'm actually going to go with this lavender. You can't really see it. I'm actually putting some of this on. Let's put it up here too. Got to put some of it into here. So I'm working on the shadows. Even though you see a lot of pink, a lot of this pink will be gone. It'll just be underneath, gives it a nice warm tone underneath. I think this is one like, this one piece I think is like Prismacolor. They have kind of a slick feel to it. There we go. So it's a little bit every way. I'm going to go with a darker purple. Yeah, let's go to a darker purple. And now I'm going to use a darker purple for some of the shrubs. But it's the light of the dark. That's what I'm doing with a lighter purple. So you kind of, when you paint, you should always try to strive to get not only your lights and darks, but you also want to get your midtones. And your midtones is what's going to help form your piece into a three-dimensional piece. It's because it rounds it out. It creates a shape to it. So I now need more lights. Let's go with a lighter blue. Let's put this lighter blue. Then I'll use this lighter blue to actually get some of the lighter shapes in through here. Back. This blue's kind of nice. Okay. Let's now go to a kind of a peach color. And I'm going with the peach because that is a complementary color to the blue, since it's a tint of orange. So I'm adding it onto here. This comes down. I'm not pressing as hard because I want some of that blue underneath it to show through. It's kind of a wild application, isn't it? I know some people are a little bit more. This in here. Okay, I want to show depth in the sky. That if you notice, if you look up at the sky, and here we have such wonderful skies that up high, way high, it's dark blue. And as it comes down, it becomes turquoise. And as it hits the trees or the sandias, it becomes aqua light. And so even in this small plane, I want to start doing that, adding blue at the top. And then I'm going to progressively, in this small little spot, I'm going to go lighter and lighter to depict depth in the sky. I'm also going to use it barely in the mountain and a little bit in for accents behind the trees. I'm also going to add a little bit of blue here.
Are you still using the side?
Yes. I use side a lot. And as it progresses, then it starts getting more, my lines shorter, more definite, my strokes. I'm going to go a little bit lighter than, let's go a little bit lighter here. Not pressing as hard.
So Susan, when you put the gesso on, it looks like you purposely leave a lot of brush strokes in there.
No, that's the wood.
Well, that's the wood.
I sand it.
Wow.
It's been sanded and gessoed 3 times. And when I first started doing this, probably back in the early 2000s, I was trying to get it like marble, and I did like 8 gessos, and I'm going, wow, because I had a friend in Houston who did colored pencil on gesso panels. And Deborah said, oh, you sand it and sand it, it's like marble, and I did it, and I go, wow. And then I put pastels on, and it's like, I see the wood. Which is great for desert scenes. You know, I did a cacti garden at Balboa Park in San Diego of the cacti on wood, and it was perfect. So I'm adding some of this that I had there into the sky, lighten up a little bit, put a little bit here. Yeah, that's what I say. You know, it does wood. There, if you later on look at some of these down here, there's a couple of the smaller round ones. You don't see wood grain. Well, there's no gesso on it, and I just did like the red here, and then I did an alcohol wash with the red instead of putting it in, and then I just started drawing it. The real smallest one, I did life drawing on it, and it just had an alcohol wash, very limited with colors. And so you don't see as much texture, but the larger you get, the more you really want to turn around and preserve it correctly. So that's why I gesso it, because the wood, you want to prime it and archive it properly. Okay, so now I'm using a little brown in here onto the bushes. I'm actually, usually I step back a lot, but not as much because I think this thing's going to fall down. So let's start rounding it out. My basis of application is really more like Impressionism. It's strokes. And working in complementary colors. This is in through here. I'm going to put some dark tones on some of the grass. And one of the things, if somebody here, I know in my class I talk about the different marks in the shrubbery, and if you're an oil painter, you know what I'm referring to. I do a lot of scumbling with my pastels, which is like scribbling, and the oil painters do it. And so instead of fine little strokes, it's kind of erratic in different widths, and that's really good to portray some of the shrub like chamisa and stuff that we have. So now it's starting to come together pretty good. I like the pink showing through, but a lot of that. I threw that in there. Let's see. I'm going to add, is this the one I have that was pretty crappy? Let's try this one. I normally don't use very soft pastels till I get midway or towards the end, because it fills up the grooves. And I really like a lot of layers. Like to me, when I look up and I look at clouds, I see gold, I see lavender, I see lime green. It's like, it's not a gray shadow in a white cloud to me. I mean, our clouds are just beautiful here. So I'm starting to build up the clouds. And then I go back, maybe do some marks in here. Now you can get square sheets too. You don't have to go round. And of course, it does make it much more complex to frame it. And so I was talking about lime green. So I'm actually going to add, let's see where this is. I'm going to put a little bit of lime green up here. And this is like it's going to rain here. And then I'll use it for some of the movement here. Just a little bit. And then, and as I was saying that our medium pastel is very forgiving up to a point. Like I go, oh, that's too dark. That looks terrible. Then I could take like an ivory and go back over it. And what I call kicking it back or changing the intensity of it, go back and cover it. And then I just, depending on your pressure, some of that green still is shining through. So then, and that's what I want. I want the reflective quality. I want to show the clouds like they're buoyant. They're light in the air. I mean, they're usually massive. But when you look up, I mean, it looks like they're so static. And then as you're looking and look down, then you look, all of a sudden they're over there. And it's like, which I applaud anybody who goes out and does plain air, because just that, to capture the movement of the cloud and the intensity of the depths of the coloring, while the thing's moving across the horizon, it's daunting. It really is. Now I'm just going to put a little bit here. I'm using now the edge of my pastel. And then you go, some people go, well, this isn't really popping, this ivory here. So what I would do then is take like, let's try this one, a darker color next to it. That's not dark enough, I gotta go even darker. There's the turquoise. So then if you go next to it with a darker color, and then you go back, let's go with white this time. I don't know if that's white or ivory. And then go back. No, I'm hitting it. Oh, that's a pink. Then your white is more vibrant when it's next to a dark. I would almost, I think, go with the blue spruce there. Then your color's going to pop, and then you go, well, that's just sticking out. So then you go back with your turquoise and minimize it, just have some of it. But that dark bordered next to it's going to make it pop even so much more. I would probably do some pinks, believe it or not. Actually, the other was red. This is a softer, a pink. So even in this rough texture, you can still acquire a lightness with your clouds. And I'm building up all these colors. This kind of goes in like this. You're building up all these colors, these layers, and then I'm going to put a little bit lighter in through here. So I'm going to go now, see, hopefully it doesn't fall. Has anybody worked with wood before? Oh, yeah, with me.
It was in the Ween show last year. It was the sunset.
Oh, yeah. You have worked on wood. So I'm going to put some of the royal blue into the cloud. And a real important thing, a lot of people, is to continually keep whitening your pastel. Especially if you're like me and you're putting all these layers in. You're dragging across all these colors. Okay, I'm going to put some more blue in through here. I'm actually going to bring this out. And I do a lot of sweeping motion. This down a little bit.
It's 11:52.
Okay. So unfortunately, mine take quite a bit of time. Like I was saying, it used to take 3 weeks. I'm down to 2. Who wants to sit that long? And when I work at home, I usually work on several paintings at once, like 8 paintings. And that way I rest my eyes. I don't kind of throw off any of the lines. You start working on it. And actually everybody, no matter if you work on one or many, every 20, 30 minutes you should rest your eyes because you're straining your eyes and your lines start getting contorted. And some people, some oil painters, what they'll do is and the ones who won this are lucky, have a vase of flowers in their studio, and then after 20 minutes stop and just look at the flowers. And that rests your eyes and revitalizes them, believe it or not. And so I'd probably, okay, I know I'm running out of time. I would probably build this up even more, have more turquoise, not just green in this, and build this up even more. And I would go back towards the very end and take white and highlight then the whitest whites, you know, the clouds like here. And I would press hard at those points. I would probably highlight like a little bit of this different shades of green with turquoise, bring that on. I would then put a little bit of that into the sky. And eventually, with all my layers, it minimizes some of the wood. The wood, unless you want to keep it showing. So I would be building this up, and I hop back and forth between the darks and the lights, always. That's a little green. Let's see if we can kick that back. I'm going to draw something. Uh-oh. They're going to kick us out. Okay. Does anybody have questions?
Susan, where do you get the wood? Do they sell it in a circle?
Yeah. Some of the circles, you can get them in the raw wood section at Michael's. You could get them at Hobby Lobby. You could buy them on online on Amazon. You could get better wood, too. Oak wood, you know, that's a little bit harder. This is like birch. And like I say, the larger it gets, the more you want to make sure you archive it properly. You'd want to put the gesso. And otherwise, I mean, like, I think I'm going to step in. Oh. Like this is not gesso, and this has gold leaf on it. This is not gesso. This I just completed it is. This I did from life. Well, actually I started all of these from life and then finished in the studio. They do have the X on the back. Do you have to cut me off, Nicholas?
No.
Oh, sorry. Does anybody have?
Do you put something over it if you don't have glass on it?
You have to have glass on it. You know, I know they came out when I was president and during IAPS. They were so nice. I forget the woman's name. They come out with this fixative that they say you could spray and you don't need glass. And I talked to her and I said, I worked in a frame shop. There's no way I'm going that route. And I don't use fixative either. If you use a good substrate, and you frame it properly with a space in between, you don't need the fixative. If I sprayed it with fixative and I go like that, it still comes off on your hand. Maybe not as bright, but it still comes off. And so it has to be on a good substrate. You could skimp on supplies, foam board, masking tape, alcohol. But with your pastels and your substrate, your paper, you need good stuff. And then you're going to end up in the Getty, I assure all of you. So, and as a framer, I used to frame with my girlfriend, and she did high end in San Diego. And we did pastels, and we did all kinds of stuff, triple frames, hand wrapped linen mats, you know, triple mats and fillets and stuff. It needs to be on a good substrate, and you need a 1/4 inch away from the art to the glass. And you really need glass instead of plexiglass. And especially if you're lucky and you sell to somebody in New Orleans, you ship it to them. If you don't have a quarter of an inch, there's high humidity there. And it causes all this moisture inside of your painting. And I have seen in the frame shop, they've brought in paintings where they just had a mat and their pastels are moldy. That moisture builds up the mold. So, you could have simplified framing, but you need it framed properly, Is there any other questions? I have a ways to go on this, I assure you. And I'll keep working on it, and I'll send a copy to Marilyn.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Nicholas.
And me,
Oh, and you, okay. And,
put it in the final film.
okay. And, in the gold leaf, I love using gold leaf. When I do a lot of portraits, I add gold leaf to it. And there you have to really plan it out, like how loose I did this. Like this is going to become much more tighter. I have it real loose. I'm going to have lines, actually, a lot more lines like the larger one down there. It's just I build it up in layers. I forgot where I was going. There it is, sign of aging. Yeah. Thank you. Before I spill this.
Susan, there's a question over here.
Oh, yeah.
Susan, over here.
Over here.
How do you get the wood then adhered to the backing board?
It's floated. What I do is, behind it is an acid-free foam board. That is, you use Elmer's glue that's acid-free, Elmer's glue. It's used in frame shops. You could get expensive glue, but Elmer's free is acid-free, Elmer's glue. And I put double-faced tape and a little bit of Elmer's glue on it, and I put this on, and I put tracing paper over, and I weight it down flat on a table and wait 24 hours. Then when that's done, it's adhere. Then on the back, I get my mat board I'm going to have, because it has to float. And I get a mat board, and I center it where it's going to go, and the mat's cut for the frame. And on the back of that foam core that I adhered, I turn this over carefully onto tracing paper, and then I put a couple pieces of double-faced tape, take them off, and then put some Elmer's glue. Then I put it on the center mat board, weigh it down again for another 24 hours. Then you put in spacers in your frame and your glass,
Do you ever sleep?
Do I ever sleep? Who said that? I've been trying to do more. Yeah, I've been trying real hard to do more. That's been a problem. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.